So yesterday we stopped here at total cost, if I'm not wrong. So I said you total cost is nothing but variable cost plus fixed cost. Okay. So now there is a cost function. What do you mean by a function? Function is like, suppose let's say this is a machine. You give input to this and this will give you output. So function is like that. Suppose y is equal to a plus bx. Suppose not let us say f of x is equal to 2x plus 3. Is this a function? Yes. Why? Because you take any value of x, like say 1, you get the value of this function. So you are giving the input as 1 and the output is with you 5. Okay, so that's the function. So what does cost function show? And what is the point they are raising here? Total uh, cost begin at fixed cost level and rise by the amount of variable cost per unit for each unit of increase in activity. Of course, yesterday we have seen the property fixed cost is always fixed. Like say, let's say if this is a fixed cost, let's say this would be fixed. Variable cost will increase with the increase in activity levels, and total cost will also increase with increase in activity level. Why? Because the variable cost will uh, draw that the total cost curve upwards. Okay, so we will see that here. Let's say this is the cost function y is equal to f plus vx. So this is in the form of y is equal to a plus bx, whereby y is the dependent variable and x happens to be the independent variable. Why? Because y's value solely depends upon x value. That means for if you change x value, you would get different y values. Okay. Here there are two things, a and b, they are constant. So here a is y intercept and b is kind of slope. Okay. So if I take a graph like this, imaginary graph, let me draw here. This is return and this is risk. So this is origin. The risk is 0. Okay, if the graph start, this is risk-free rate, let's say 4%. From here the graph starts, and here the risk you can see 1, 2, 3. If you are increasing the levels of risk, the returns are also increasing. Okay, like for no risk you get 4%. For if you take risk, if your risk is increasing from no risk to 1%, like let's say this is standard deviation, it's an imaginary graph. Okay, so your return would be 8%, and if you take risk like from 1 to 2, your return would be 12%, and then from 3 it would be 16%, and you can make a graph in this way. It's a straight line, correct? Yes. Now what I mean to say here is I want to explain you some point. Y is equal to a plus bx. This is a regression equation. Okay, you have seen many of the examples of dependent variable and independent variable. Let's say sales and advertisement, they share a positive relationship. If you increase the advertisement, the sales can increase. If you decrease it, the sales can decrease. And the sales are solely dependent on the advertisement. So this is a dependent variable, independent variable. Price and demand. Price is an independent variable, demand is a dependent variable. The demand solely depends upon price. If you increase the price, the demand would decrease. If you decrease the price, the demand would increase. So that is what I wanted to explain you. Here two things are constant, A and B. So in my this graph, the constant A, which is y-intercept, which is nothing but y-intercept is nothing but some line which cuts the y-axis or touches y-axis. So here this is the point at which this graph or this line is, this line you can see a straight line is touching the y-axis. So that is y-intercept. So it is 4%. That means the risk-free rate cannot change. It is always constant. Then B is the slope. B shows what? B shows change in, B is equal to change in, y-axis, change in y-axis with respect to change in x-axis. Okay, this is what is. Just a second. So change in y-axis by change in x-axis. So what is happening? See, if the risk is increasing from 0 to 1, okay, see, till this 0, it is 4. Okay, so you can see here, y is equal to a plus bx. So if I have the y-intercept, that is 4%, I put it here 0.04 plus. What is B? Now comes the point, what is B? Change in y-axis by change in x-axis. So 0 to 4, 4 minus 0. By do you think I'm going from 0 to 1, I'm going, correct? But change in x-axis is almost 0. So first one doesn't work out. But if I want to see the slope, like from 0 to 1, it's 1. Okay. If I want to go from 0, this is the risk actually. 0 risk, the returns are 4%. But if I want to go from 4 to 8, returns are from 4 to 8. That means I have to go from 1 to 2. Correct. So 4, like 8 minus 4 by 2 minus 1. So that is 4 by 1, 4. Again, if I want to go from, I want to take a higher risk. So I am taking higher risk here. I took from 0 to 1. I increase the risk from 1 to 2. Again, I'm increasing the risk from 2 to 3. So here I'm increasing the risk and my returns are also increasing from 8 to 12. So 12 minus 8 by 3 minus 2. That is 4 by 1. That is 4. So you can see the slope is constant every point of time. So I take again the slope as 4. Okay, that is my slope and my x. So like what happens here, your whatever you're taking here is in percentage form, risk and return. So I'll take 0.04. So my slope is 0.04, that is change in x-axis by change in y-axis. No, I can take as 4. And then x. Like I'm finding out the returns. Y is nothing but the return. Y-axis shows return and your x-axis shows risk. Okay. So you change the risk and the return would definitely change. How? Let us see. So y is equal, so here the y-intercept, that is a is equal to 4. Okay, I'm not taking percentage, I'm taking numbers, and slope is 4. Okay, so y is equal to a plus bx. So if I take 4 and 4 into, and my risk is 0, first my risk free rate is 0. So I put 0 here and I get a return of 4. Okay, that's proved and justified. You can see here 4 for no risk, I'm getting 4% returns. I'll change my risk. So y is equal to a plus b into 1 and my return is 8. You can check here. If I take the risk from 0 to 1, my returns are 8. I'll change from here. I'll take this 2. So y is equal to 4 plus 4 into 2. So 4 plus 8 is 12 and I get 12 here. Okay, and again I take from 2 to 3. So I take y is equal to A plus B into 3. So it is 16. So you can see, like I have proved all the points to you. So this dependent variable y is dependent on this independent variable x, and x value you can put and you can find out the y values. You can forecast the y values with x values. That is what this particular concept is all about. Cost function, whereby you can take, you can see here y is equal to your fixed cost is always fixed. Variable cost would change with the activity level. That means number of units or production, if you change or increase, you get your total cost would also increase, and that is what this function shows. And you can see the graph, you can see that graph. What does this graph show? This is the production, this is the total manufacturing cost, and here is the fixed cost, maybe 700. Okay, that would be fixed, that won't change. That is 7 lakhs or something, that won't change. But when you are increasing your production units, like y is equal to 7 plus 20 into 0 is 7. Y is equal to 7 plus 20, 7 in the sense I'm just taking for sake of taking, into 10, 200 plus 7 or something, it is increasing. 7 lakhs plus 20 into, you take 10, you add them up, you get something here. And for again, if you take 20, you'll get it here, 30 you'll get it here, so it will be going on increasing. Okay, hopefully you can put all the, you can take this y is equal to 7 lakh plus 20 into, you can take 0, 10, 20, 30, 40, 50, 60, 17 thousands. Okay, 20 into 10,000, 0 first. Then y is equal to 7 lakhs plus 20 into 10,000. Then y is equal to 7 lakhs plus 20 into 20,000. You can take up any value and you can get the values. Okay. So that is what it is. I hope you have got this clearly. Let me move forward. Now comes direct versus indirect cost. We have already discussed about direct cost and indirect cost, so no need to discuss again and again. This is the one which is directly attributable towards production process. This is the one which is to support the direct activity, and whereby you incur the cost, whereby you are supporting direct activity, you incur indirect cost. So direct cost is directly something which you know per unit wise. That is raw material per unit is like $10. Labor you're paying $20 per hour like wages, but overheads or indirect cost are like lump sum amounts, and that is 10,000 is, let's say, the factory rent, and this if you have to divide, if you want to know the per unit of this overhead, you have to divide by the allocation base, that is machine hours or labor hours in case of absorption costing. Okay, and for activity costing, I will tell you how you can allocate in the coming pages. We have that discussion, but let us first understand other cost and cost classifications. Explicit cost are nothing but uh, out of pocket costs. Explicit costs involve payment of cash and include wages and salaries explicitly. That is, you are paying you are paying for something. Okay, interest paid on loans, and these are all costs which you incur, you pay. That's what. And the explicit opposite is implicit cost. Most explicit cost eventually become expenses through the timing of their recognition as an expense, may be delayed. For example, when inventory, see, when you purchase inventory, it is like an asset, but when you sell inventory, suppose you purchase 100 boxes, you sold 10 boxes. So when you sell 10 boxes, the cost of those 10 boxes has to be recognized, so then it becomes an expense. Okay, so maybe not immediately, but later it may become an expense. Implicit cost is nothing but imputed cost, is a cost that does not involve any specific cash payment. That means you're not paying here. These are economic costs. That means you're considering, you're considering to take some decision regarding what could be advantageous for you. For example, make or buy. Yesterday I discussed. So you think that it is better to buy than to make. That means you're losing the opportunity of making, and you are not making that. Okay, so I can say that that is a lost income for this. Why? Because this is a better option than that. Correct. Some example has been given. So you can say opportunity cost can also be one of the examples of implicit cost. Implicit costs do not become expenses, as I said. because it is not of monetary nature. It doesn't, it will not become an expense and never will be shown in the statement of profit or loss. And for example, interest not earned on money that could have been invested. So suppose you have money that you can invest in 10 options, but you invested in some one option, so you lost those incomes of four options. That's what. Opportunity cost, yeah, you become a CMA, you can start, you can be an analyst, that is, you can be a self-employed person, or in case, in fact, you can also do a job. You choose doing job and don't want to take that much risk of being a consultant or analyst, and here is what you choose the best out of the rest, and hence this is the opportunity cost for you. Okay, because you are choosing this at the expense of this. Carrying cost are the cost the company incurs when it holds inventory, that means storage cost. Okay, insurance and other things. Sunk cost, whether you do some activity or you don't do any activity, these are the costs you're going to incur. Let's say some Mr. A has bought a Mercedes Benz car. He has put that in his garage, and he is not at all using that car any day, any point of time, and he thinks that after 5 years I will be using this car. But do you think that car is not going to get depreciated? Definitely, it is going to get depreciated. Okay. Just a second. Yeah. So sunk costs are the costs that have already been incurred. So depreciation is one of the examples. Research is one of the examples. Why? Because if you do want to start a business or you don't want to start a business, it doesn't matter. But you would definitely do research, thorough research on something. Okay. So sunk costs are something like irrelevant ones. You need not worry about them, because why to put a lot of stress on something whereby you don't have any answer to control that. It's going to happen. Depreciation is going to happen at any cost. Even though you drive the car, you don't drive the car, depreciation is going to happen. That's the reason why they say don't put your money or don't invest in something which depreciates. Committed costs are like something which you have to do. Okay. So they are the costs required to establish and maintain the readiness to do business. That means like purchase of machinery, like let's say franchise. Without franchise, you can't start a business. So that's what property, plant, and equipment, etc. Discretionary cost. That means it is like you want to do or you don't want to do. It depends upon you. You can do that. That means you can like decide. You are flexible to do. Flexible cost. That means if you let's say for example you want to serve food to some people, there are two types of disposals. Excuse me. There are two options you have. One is you can buy some crockery glasses, glass, glass, like crockery glass, to serve the, actually glass is something which is, like crystal kind of. At home, we use this term called glass when we serve water to someone, but that's not actually glass, that is tumbler. Okay. Made up of steel. So what I mean to say is you can take disposals, you can buy glass also to serve water to people. As what language we know, we can use it. So you think that instead of buying this glass and serving people or whatever, like it's better to take disposal. And that is solely it depends upon you what you want to take. It's upon you. It's upon your discretion. So you are saving unnecessary cost here. Marginal cost is nothing but if you have produced 100 units, you want to produce 101th unit. The additional cost what will be incurring for producing that extra one unit is nothing but the marginal cost. So I want you to read this. Okay. And madam, you should explain me what is this. I'm waiting for your reply. Hello. Are you following?
Yes, sir.
Hello. Okay, madam. You read that and explain me. Yeah, madam, can you like explain? Hello. Yeah, see, like overtime, when overtime is worked by production employees, the overtime premiums, you'll be paying extra wages to your workers who work overtime, is accounted for as factory overhead unless the need to work overtime results from a specific job or customer request. That means you show it as factory overhead, but overtime should be done if it is required. Overtime premium is the amount of increase in the wages paid per hour for the overtime work. For example, direct labor is like paid $20 per hour for regular hours and is paid at something like say time and half. That means like they pay $10 extra for overtime or $30 per hour. For overtime hours worked in excess of 40 hours per week. 10 hours of overtime are needed in each week to complete the week's required production. The regular rate of $20 per hour multiplied by 10 hours or $200 is classified as direct labor cost, and the half time premium, whatever it is, additional what you're paying is classified as factory overhead. You should be very clearly understanding this. The extra whatever he is working for some extra request is factory overhead, but if he is working regular hours or regular work, whatever is doing on the machine in the factory is classified as direct labor cost. Be specific in this and understand what I'm saying. So half time, this $100 is overtime premium what they have been paying, and that is actually overhead, and that $200 is like direct labor cost. Okay, that's what they have said here. And costing methods, we'll be discussing about this. So introduction to costing methods. You know, when you make a product, you make it with three things: labor, direct material, direct labor, and overhead cost. Okay. So in developing a costing system, management accountants need to make choices in three categories of costing methods. Cost measurement method, to use in allocating cost to units manufactured. That means how will you allocate the cost? That means whether you'll be using standard, normal, or actual costing. We'll be discussing about these three methods. Cost accumulation system to use, job costing or process costing, we'll see. Because when you do a job or something, you accumulate all the cost, and which is what you're incurring to do that job. And then method to be used to allocate overhead, volume based or activity based. That means we will discuss about this in details. So like we are now discussing about the cost accumulation systems. Okay. Cost accumulation system is nothing but I'm speaking about process costing. You know what is the difference between process costing and job costing? Any clue, any idea? Hello. Can anyone tell me what is job costing? Hello. Any clue I'm asking, can anyone tell me what is job, what is this like job costing? Anyone can differentiate. Very strange. See, job costing and process costing are two different uh, types of methods. Suppose there are two people here, two friends, and this is a shop of like some tailoring shop. Okay, so these two people go there and they want to attend a marriage, friend's marriage, and these guys go there and they ask this tailor to stitch a suit for them. Suit, you may be knowing what I mean to say here. So like what this guy is somewhat like is a lean guy, he's a fat guy. So now tailor takes dimensions of these two guys and he asks for 5 days for stitching that suit. Now what the tailor is doing here is he's doing a job work here. Why it's a job work? Because the specifications of two different people are different. He has to use the material, direct material, labor or overheads, whatever is going to incur, whatever it is, he is going to incur specifically on both of them. Because the cloth what he'll be using for lean guy would be a lesser cloth, and for the fat guy is going to be more. Okay, so here the entire task is done by the tailor. One guy is doing that task. Only tailor himself is doing the task. He is cutting the cloth. He is stitching he is cutting the cloth, cutting and washing, and then stitching, and then he is also the one who is buttoning. He is packing. Okay, he is billing. So everything he is doing. That's what we say, that is it is a job work, because individual is doing a task for different people as per their specifications, and he himself is doing all this task. Job costing, and we will discuss about that, don't worry. Now process is something different. You go to brand factory, you go to west side, you go to big malls. Excuse me. Yes. So now when I speak about process costing, things are different. I was speaking about brand factory, west side. If you go to big malls, you see like shirts, trousers, and those shirts, like suppose a shirt of one pattern that is of red color, you'd be seeing 36 size. 38 size, 40 size, that means medium, large, extra large, 44, 42, 44, 46, 48 range. You will be getting all these ranges for these shirts, correct? Do you think one tailor is making all these shirts common by taking everyone's specification? No. This is done by some process. That means when I speak about process costing, I speak about bulk production. I speak about a big company, a branded company which does this. So what they do is they have this process. They divide everything into process. Okay. Process one, whereby cutting happens, and cutting happens by big machines as per the specification. Process one is done. The cutting is done, and this is process one. So process one, the input was given as like cloth. This process is done, and the output, whatever you get from the process one, is the input for process two. See, things are very clear in job costing or process costing. Whatever you do with direct material, direct labor and overheads. That is not the matter of concern. But what is happening is the way the things are done there. Okay. So here the things are done as per the process. They're like as per the specification individual would do. Then cutting process is done, then washing. Washing is the process number two. All the whatever it's clothes you have seen here is washed, and input of this becomes the output of this becomes the input of process three. I'm giving a generalized idea about all this because today's topic that you don't have to study those things in detail. Let me be very clear, but you are going to study process costing and these two chapters in the coming pages. So I'm giving small idea so that at that time my task is not like exaggerated. It becomes easy for me and for you even. So here the input of this is like then comes the stitching. This is done by the machines or tailors, whatever. Then input becomes output of next process 4. Then comes the buttoning. Then comes the packing. Then comes the billing. So all these are processes, and since we are doing from process one, input becomes output becomes output of process one becomes input of process two. Like that, all the inputs have become outputs, and the final one what we get is with that we understand what is the cost of this process. Okay, all of you are following. Hello, hopefully, yeah. So now we are going into the next task, that is 3 types of cost measurement methods are there. First, we'll speak about standard costing. See, standard costing already we have discussed while we were studying the budgeting concepts. This is nothing but per unit material, direct labor are all standard cost. But total cost which we have planned or estimated or budgeted is nothing but the budgeted cost. Now many students are like having a confusion, what is standard cost and what is budgeted cost. So standard cost is also pre-estimated cost, budgeted cost is also pre-estimated cost, but this is per unit wise, this is total wise. Okay. And we say that when we speak about standard, we speak about allowed. That means this much is allowed or this much is what we want to happen. So allowed is what the term you'll be using generally in standard costing. So in general, what happens is this is standard. You have made a standard that you want to make 100 units. In actuality, you are making 120 units. What matters for you is actual. Standard is your estimate, and the variance analysis would be done based upon these only, based upon the actual. So what you'll be doing is standard input for actual output. That means you have estimated 100, no doubt, but you are comparing your standard with actual. Okay, you have to compare with 120 only. What you have in actual is what you have in actual. Standard is what you have estimated. Maybe your estimations, what you have done is not something which you always would achieve, or something would be your estimation is a like less estimation you have done. Okay, you estimated 100 guests, but 120, 150 guests came. So are you not going to cater to your guests? No, it doesn't happen like that. It would, you have to cater whatever it is, okay? Because it's a prestige issue. So the point is, you're going to compare with this. So standard input for actual output. That means how much standard unit or input you're using for 120 actual output is what is matters. Okay. So direct material and direct labor are applied to production by multiplying the standard price or rate per unit of direct materials or direct labor by the standard quantity of direct materials or direct labor allowed for actual output. That's what I said, allowed. Okay. Example. Don't worry. The example is clear here. If three direct labor hours are allowed to produce one unit. So labor is working for 3 hours to produce one unit and 100 units are produced. So standard number of direct labor hours allowed for 100 units is 300 hours. That is what? That is the standard allowed. Okay. For actual output. Okay. Like why? Because here the 100 units what are produced is actual output. So you understand standard input for actual output is what? What is the actual output you have made? 100 units. What is the input you want to give for per unit? 3 direct labor hours are required to produce one unit. So for 100 units, 300 direct labor hours. So standard input for actual output would give you the cost. Okay. So here the things are very clear. Standard cost of an input such as direct metal for 1 unit of output is standard cost price per unit of input into standard quantity of for per unit of output. Standard cost of an input such as direct metal for 100 units of output is nothing but into 100 you have to do if you have produced 100 units. Okay. And overheads already you know, like you have to go for predetermined overheads you have to find. Okay. So how will you do that? By taking allocation base. So if you have overheads, you have to divide that with the allocation base to find out per unit overhead for that particular activity. This is what is the concept we have taken from absorption costing. So we'll do a question here and then we will see what we can like do afterwards. Let's see this. So a manufacturer using standard costing applies variable, applies, that means he has applied now, he has found out the variable overhead per unit he has found out. Okay. Apply. So this is called, see, allowed is suppose 5 hours, but applied is what? Applied is what you can see here. This is like this 5 hours is like standard hours you have allowed. But here the overhead comes as application only. Why? Because you will be dividing with the allocation base and you will be finding out the overhead rate applied. Okay, so that's what here. They are using the term overhead applied. See, the manufacturer using standard costing applies variable overhead. So how you get the applied overhead rate? Predetermined overhead rate or applied overhead rate with this formula. Let's say 10,000 is your overhead and 1,000 hours is what you have the like allocation base. So $10 per labor hour. Okay. Or this is units, this is hours. So units $10 of overheads you are incurring. No, this is always an amount. I'm extremely sorry. I don't know like what came to my mind. So this is $10,000. This is 1,000 hours. So $10 per labor hour. Okay, that means like overheads are like you are incurring $10 if labor is working for 1 hour. That much is going out your overhead. That much overhead is going out from your pocket. So a manufacturer using standard costing applies variable overhead to production using machine hours as allocation base. Standard number of machine hours allowed per unit. This is allowed. See, this is allowed number of machine hours is 0.25 hours. So 0.25 hours is the standard. Okay, which you can use as a standard input for actual output. Manufacturer plans to produce these many units. So multiply. You'll get these many hours you'll be using for making these many units. Okay, in totality. And the variable manufacturing overhead is this one. And if you divide by the machine hours, you get the overhead rate. Okay. So a total of this much units are actually produced. So exceeding the budgeted production level by 500 units. That means you thought you'll be making this much, but actually you are making this much. So you're exceeding 500 units. So we would do what, like the standard number of machine hours allowed for actual output. This is the machine hours you have allowed, and this is the actual output. So 625 machine hours are required. And when I multiply with $20 overhead, I get this much overhead. Okay. So like for 2000 hours, your overhead was how much? 10, this much you're getting, not 2500. Okay. So the amount of variable overhead applied to production can also be calculated on per unit basis. Like let's say since this much is allowed, $20 is your rate. So $5 you get the overhead rate. Okay. As per your machine hours, multiply with your number of units, you get the overhead. Okay. So either you can do in this way or either you can do in this way. Whatever you think is more simpler, you can apply. Very simply understood, this is what is the allowed hours, and this is what is the budget you have made, budgeted overhead. So what you have done is you are making 2000 units, it seems. So for making, if like 0.25 hours is allowed for 1 unit, for making 1 unit, this is the allowed hour or standard hour. If you multiply with 500 like number of units, you come to know how many machine hours you require for making 2000 units, 500 hours. Okay. So you got the allocation base now. You got the allocation base. This is the allowed. This is like what is allowed. And you are making these many units. So this many hours you'll be working. Now, this is the allocation base. Now you have the like budgeted variable manufacturing overhead $10,000. So I divide with 500 machine hours to get predetermined overhead rate, or per unit for one machine hour, how much overhead is I am incurring. So $20. Done. Now, if I produce 2,500 units in actuality, so what is my cost, overhead cost? Finished. Very simple. You multiply with the machine hours. Okay. So that you know how many hours you are working. So now per hour, how much we have found out $20. Multiply, you get the overhead. Finish. That's what. Or else what you can do is you can take $20 as your overhead into per unit. You can just multiply because this is per unit overhead cost, and this is for 1 unit. You require this many hours. So $5 you are incurring for 1 unit into what you are producing. Get the amount. Okay. So we also can learn about the concept of underapplied and overapplied. What do you mean by underapplied and overapplied? Suppose you have here we have the concept. The difference between actual overhead cost incurred and the overhead cost applied. That means you incurred $10,000 and you applied. That means what you have estimated is $8,000. So what do you think now? This is what? The difference between actual overhead cost incurred and the overhead cost applied to production is called underapplied or overapplied cost, also called variance. So you incurred more, you estimated less, underapplied. And you incurred 8,000, but you estimated 10,000, overapplied. Okay, that's what 8,000. Sorry. So we have done the concept number 1 from this standard costing, and then tomorrow we'll start with normal costing and actual costing. I'll wind up this chapter tomorrow. We'll go to the next one then. Okay. Thank you so much.